Hey everybody, this is Robb Ryerse. I'm here with Mike Papacoda. We are the Bowtie Sales Guys, and Mike, we are back.
We are back. It is good to be back, Rob. I was telling you before we started, I haven't put on a bow tie in quite a while, so I was
Did you remember how
rocking
to
the
tie
summer
it?
here.
Do you
Oh,
remember how?
I have the pre-tied ones. Why are you calling me out like that? I only had 2 minutes to get here. I had to grab one that was good to go. So
Yeah,
I'm good.
I think this is probably the first bow tie I've worn since our last episode. Mike, where have we been?
All over. I've been to California a few times. I went to Louisville, Maine. Really just spending time with family and just kind of relaxing a little bit, just like a regular salesperson would do in the middle of the summer. So
Taking the summer off, right?
yeah,
Those J months of June and July, they're the
yeah,
worst. Yeah, I have been to California as well, and then the big trip for me, my wife and I spent 10 days in Ireland
yeah.
celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, and I got to be honest with you, I'm kind of checking the new like the job sites every day to see if there's any sales guys needed over in Ireland. It was absolutely amazing.
They must need salespeople in
Oh,
Ireland, right? People don't just buy stuff.
exactly, exactly. And a lot has changed since we last talked. I
Yeah,
got a haircut.
yeah. Looks good on you.
And yeah, thank you.
My beard's gotten longer. I let it grow out for the summer
There
after
you go.
completely shaving it off. So
Yep. Yeah, you don't look like a cue ball anymore, so that's
that's
a good
right.
thing. Yeah, I actually had a lady yesterday say to me, or maybe it was a couple days ago. It doesn't matter. But she said to me, I was wearing a mask. I was at this event, and she said, this is a woman I've known for a decade. Don't see her very often. She's the mother-in-law of a friend of mine, so not a closest
Right.
associate or anything. But I introduced myself to her. I said, hey, Robb Ryerse, it's good to see you. Just a reminder who I was, and I was conscious that I was wearing a mask and sunglasses, and maybe she wouldn't recognize me. And she said, "Oh, Rob," she's like, "I didn't recognize you. Your hair has gotten so gray."
Oh, nice. So some things have changed. You got older.
Yeah, well, with my short gray hair and your long gray beard,
That's right.
we are back at it as the Bowtie Sales Guys. This is our podcast where we talk here live on Facebook if you're watching along, or if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Spotify or Google Play or Apple Podcasts, any of those places. This is where we try to take a few minutes to sum up all of the things we have learned, the experiences we have had with our more than 30 years of combined experience in selling things, and try to share with other salespeople the things that we've done well, the things that we haven't done so well, and talk about those things in a way that can be an encouragement and an inspiration to salespeople. Because sales is hard. It's hard, and we want you to know that we're in your corner. I know that every sales team I've been on, I like develop a friendship with someone who feels like they're kind of on my team. Mike, you and I had that when we worked together, and we want to be your teammates. The people that are in your corner, that are rooting for you, that are helping you to be successful in sales. And so we're back at it to share some things that we've learned, and hopefully now that summer's over, we're full speed ahead into fourth quarter looming. We're back at it to bring these experiences, these tips, and these conversations to be helpful to those of you that are salespeople.
I think those are all great ideas, Rob. We should do all of them.
Absolutely. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a big idea, like we always do, and then at the end we're going to share a tip, something that you can do today to be a better salesperson, and so that being said, let's jump into it, Mike. Our big idea today, the thing that we're going to talk about today, I got to be honest with you, is one of those things that's can be a little bit difficult for salespeople. It's not an easy topic. It's not something that frankly, that I've done real well, and I don't know about you, but it's something that we need to talk about, and that is when and how to fire a client. There comes a point where the sales relationship just isn't working anymore. Not because you're not delivering for your client, but because for whatever reason, they've become a big headache for you. And every salesperson at some point, and it doesn't matter what you're selling, if you're in whether it's in retail or automotive or advertising or insurance or whatever it might be that you're selling, if you're a real estate agent, whatever realm it might be, there comes a point where you've got to say to a client, hey, this isn't working anymore, and maybe we need to go our separate ways. This is the breakup that can happen sometimes. Mike, how do you feel about, like, how does this topic strike you? Or is this something that you're super comfortable with, or is it one that gives you a little bit of reticence?
Yeah, I don't think any of us are comfortable with having to break off a relationship with a client, because if you think about, in most cases, what it's taken to get the client, build that relationship, and the time that you've spent, when you have to make the decision to say, man, maybe I can't spend any more time on this, that's a big deal. I don't think it's something that any of us will truly ever get comfortable with. But I do think it is something that we have to be able to do, because the downside of not doing it is much bigger than if you just keep that client around.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, when you're in, high school, and breaking up with, your boyfriend or your girlfriend.
Right.
And it's I don't know about you, Mike. When you were in high school, did you ever have that approach where I'll just kind of be mean to her for a while and hope she'll break up with me because I don't want to be the bad guy?
Yeah, that was my go-to MO. Usually I would just be like, oh, I think I like so-and-so. And I started talking to them, and then they dumped me, and that was the end of it. So I never had to, like, do it myself. I know it was kind of the easy way out,
Yep.
but it's how I did it, because I didn't like hurting people's feelings by just outright telling them, hey, I really don't like you anymore, and I think we should probably not
Yeah.
be together.
I remember when my oldest child was in high school. They once told their boyfriend that they just weren't feeling it anymore, and so
I like that.
that's been a line that we've used in our house ever since. I'm just not feeling it anymore. So let's talk about taking that deep breath and making this decision to let a client go, let a customer go, because for whatever reason it's just not working anymore. What are those reasons? And maybe, Mike, do you have any kind of stories, experiences from your time in
Yeah.
sales where
So
this has come up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Rob, is the when you look at the amount of time that you have to spend to take care of a customer, as opposed to what is your return on the investment of that time. Because obviously we all have that limited amount of time that we can spend with each customers throughout the day. And so, yeah, I think, I could think of a story where had a client when I was showing them some houses, lots of houses back, selling some real estate. And we would find a house that they absolutely loved, and they were like, all right, well, we really want to put in an offer. I'm like, okay, so here's the situation. I'd lay out the situation that's probably going to end up being multiple offers, and we need to move quickly. If you don't move quickly, you're going to lose out on this house. And Rob, that had happened 3 or 4 times where they
Oh,
just wouldn't move at the speed that I was trying to explain to them, that if you don't move at this speed, you are going to lose out on getting the house that you wanted for your family. And so by the fourth time, I'm starting to wonder, is it me? Is it my lack of communication? Is it their commitment to the process? Maybe they do want to buy a house, but there's some fear there. And we've had these conversations, but it just doesn't seem like it's resonating with them, and they continue to move at that slower pace. So me, as a sales professional, I have to decide now at this point, is it worth the time that we continue to invest in finding houses, going to see houses, writing up these offers, only for that client to say, or just not act in a timely manner, and now we've missed out. So how far do I go down that path to continue to do this? Or at some point, do I have to make the decision and say, my time is a little more valuable than that? I'm happy to refer you to someone else who might be able to help you. But it just seems like we have reached a crossroad where we can't do that. And that's just one example. I know you and I talked the other day, and I think that you had a pretty interesting story of a client, kind of a similar situation, not in the real estate world, but
what you just said, Mike, reminds me a little bit of kind of this adage that gets used in like social work, where people that are involved in helping other people, whether it's in recovery or different kind of social work, it's this idea of like, you can't want it more than they do.
right.
And, I'm sure you've felt that with these clients of like, come on. Like,
Listen, the other night I was cooking dinner and I was so frustrated because it had just happened. And I'm just like kind of slamming pots around and I'm not happy with the way it's coming out. And my significant other's like, what is wrong? And I was just like, nothing's wrong. But I knew had nothing to do with the dinner. I mean, the dinner turned out fine. It was just that I was so frustrated because, like you said, I wanted it for them, obviously more than I think they wanted it, because I was really frustrated on their behalf. And I was just like, all right, at this point, we need to make a decision.
Yeah. So let me tell you about a time where I had to let a client go. I had inherited a client. And so I don't know what expectations were set by the previous rep that I had inherited this client from. I don't know kind of how they dealt with it, if they just put up with it, or if they had some kind of rapport that, they didn't have the issues I had. But it was a client where they were really high maintenance. They had all sorts of requests, all sorts of desires. This is when I was working in media sales, and they had very specific requests about their commercial placements and where they wanted to be, and they didn't want to get moved around. If you're not familiar with how advertising sales works, you can get preempted. Somebody can I don't know if folks know this, a TV commercial isn't sold until it airs, because for the vast majority of them, somebody can come in after you buy that airtime and buy it out from under you for more money. And if that happens, you get preempted, you get moved, and you have to, air that commercial a different time. And this client was just really difficult about preempts, and they weren't paying a high dollar amount for their individual commercial spots, and so they got preempted a lot. It was just difficult. They didn't communicate real well. I would, try to let them know when this stuff would happen, and then they wouldn't get back to me, and then I'd be stuck, and I would have, these preempt reports that I'd have to deal with. And then on top of that, they were impossible to collect payment from. The vast majority of my clients, we would send an invoice and they would pay. And every once in a while, somebody would get behind on payment, and I'd make a phone call or stop in and see them and get it resolved, no problem. This client, I had to go to their location every 2 weeks and pick up a check. And probably about 75% of the time, the owner who I needed to pick up the check from would suddenly not be available. I'd call ahead of time, send an email ahead of time, do all that due diligence, and it just was this just excruciating process of trying to collect payment from them. And then, so they're difficult, and they don't pay on time, and they get behind, and then they were only spending about $500 a month, which, is not a lot of money. And I finally got to the point where I said, listen, I can't do this anymore. This is not worth my time, my effort, the work that I'm putting in, the stress and the headache, driving over to their location and starting to get a little knot in my stomach because I know this is going to be a difficult thing. Like, I don't need this. Right. I don't need this for $500 a month. It's just not worth it to me. And so it got to the point where I had to let that client go. And Mike, I think it's important to know that sometimes we need to let clients go because we need that. And sometimes we need to let clients go because they need that. And so, and you mentioned when you talked about the ROI thing, but what are some of the things that you think about when it comes to, like, what are the factors that would come into play that would cause you to evaluate a relationship with a client that say, you know what, this isn't working for me as the salesperson anymore?
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of it is that time commitment to the amount of money that they're spending, because I think either consciously or subconsciously, when you know that it's a $500 customer, when you've got $20,000 a month customers over here, are you really going to be able to provide them with the level of service that they expect for their 500? Because for a small business, $500 a month in advertising is a lot of money. It's not a lot of money to us in terms of commissions, things like that, but for their business it's a lot of money, and they expect for that $500 to be treated just like somebody that's spending 20,000 because they've got a bigger budget. So you have to decide as a rep, can you provide that level of service to that $500 a month client at the same level that you would at the $20,000 a month? And if the answer is no, then I think there's probably an opportunity to say, hey, I've got someone else that can probably service you a little bit better than I can, because I'm tied up in another project, and here's how we're going to transition into this new rep. And I think that's an example of something that you and I have both been a part of, where we had to make a decision that there's some newer reps on the team that can probably handle this account, because my time, not only for me, but for the company and for the customer, is much better spent servicing this bigger customer just because of my level of experience. And so I think that's an example.
Yeah. And the ROI isn't just, and you're absolutely right, but it's not always just a cost factor.
Right.
I think too that there is, part of the sales proposition is you want to, you sell based on, hey, this is going to increase your profits or this is going to reduce your cost. But you also sell sometimes based on, this is going to make life easier for you, or this is going to simplify your process. And there's a benefit there. And sometimes there's clients where those benefits go away because of the stress that they put on us. If you really care about your clients, care about taking care of them well, making sure that you provide the best service for them, and you get into these difficult situations where there's interpersonal tension or difficulty, and it's causing you as a salesperson, it's causing you stress, you're losing sleep over it. I mean, I'm kind of at a point in my life where I think life's too short to to worry about that kind of stuff. That sometimes,
and I think what you said, like the point in your life, because I can remember back early on in my sales career, I would take on any client, anytime, try to manage as many as I could, and I would work myself to the bone trying to create that book of business. But much like you, I've reached a point in my life now where I have to be a little more selective on the clients that I work with and the time that I allot, because there are other things outside of work that demand my time, and that I want to be respectful of that time. And so I think it does depend upon where you are in your career, but it's certainly something to think about.
Yep, absolutely. So there's times where we need to break up with our clients because it's us. It's not you, it's me. Sometimes it's actually better for them. And whether they realize it or not, what are the scenarios in which you think it might be better for the client to have somebody else serving them?
Well, like I said, if I don't have the time to commit to their needs, if I can't be there, to maintain that level of service that they've come to expect, then it is probably best for them to have someone who's going to be a little bit more attentive to them long term with their relationship with the company, as well as with me. And I like what you said. It's not you, it is me. But I think back to the it's not personal. It's just business, and we're trying. It's not you and your personality, even though it might be. But at the end of the day, it's about business. And can you get the level of service that you need from my company and from me, or not? And if not, then we probably need to find another solution that's going to be better for you.
Yep. So that kind of leads into the how. So once you've made this decision, here's somebody that I'm at the end of my rope with. I can't do this anymore. How do we go about doing this? And I think there's a couple of really important things. One is you need to make sure that you're 100% sure.
Right.
This isn't anything to just do willy-nilly. It's something that you probably need to have some conversations with your sales manager about, to make sure they're okay with it.
Right.
You don't want to just go firing big clients because you feel like it, and that's like that can get yourself in a world of hurt. You need to be 100% sure that this is the right decision. So don't do this emotionally. Don't fly off the handle. Don't just say, forget it, I'm done. This is something you really need to consider and be absolutely sure that it's the right decision, thinking about all of these factors that we've talked about. Now, once you're at that point, I also think it's tremendously important to do it with integrity.
Right.
And that means, finishing well. If there are outstanding projects, making sure those get done. If there's any loose ends that need to be tied up, making sure that happens. You want to make sure that you leave, that client with, the best possible taste in their mouth. They have friends. They know other businesses. They know other people. And you don't want to, get a reputation as being someone who just, fires people and lets them sink. You've got to make sure that you take care of them on the way out. Finish well with them.
Yeah, and I think you need to have a plan, like for that transition. What is your plan? Yeah. So if it's an internal thing where maybe you're giving it to another rep and they're going to take it over and they're going to kind of, nurture that business, let's talk about that plan with them and then relay that to the customer in that same conversation. There may be times when you need to refer it out to another company, depending upon what that type of business is. And do you have a trusted partner that, one, you feel comfortable referring this client to, but on the flip side, are you comfortable referring them to take this client? Because like you said, that transition is going to be key. And if they're happy with their new rep, they're going to remember that you were the one that set that up and did what was best for their business. But if you bring in somebody who's going to, perform below the level that you were giving because you were already too busy or whatever the case may be, that's going to hurt you. And so I think you need to have a really good, solid plan in place for the transition, not just for we're going to break up now. But hey, I got a new suitor for you. Here you go.
Yeah. So that leads us to probably what is the most difficult part, and that's communicating this, right? Yeah. Any thoughts about how to communicate this? Any do's or don'ts?
Just a quick text message. Hey, it's over. Here's a new guy calling. Okay, no, that's a don't do. Don't do that.
Yeah. I think, I think when it comes to stuff like this, when there's hard conversations that need to happen, I think there's this kind of human tendency to want a silver bullet, something that's going to, make it easy, take the awkwardness away, make it not a difficult thing. And I don't, when it comes to this kind of stuff, there is no silver bullet, right? Like
no,
there is no solution other than, communicating the hard truth, in a polite and tactful and way full of integrity, but you can't escape it.
Yeah, I think if you have the opportunity to do it in person, to do it over a video call where you can still make that eye contact, have that body language, because I think that's going to be key. Obviously, an email, a text message, very impersonal, probably not going to go over well. But if I can have a conversation, I would prefer in person where we can sit down and I can explain to you, hey, here's where we are in our relationship. And I just feel like, I've taken you as far as I can take you, and I'm not able to deliver on the results, and that's not fair to you. It's not right to you, and I want to do right by you. So here is my recommendation moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, but if you can do it in person or at least by video, I think it helps so much.
Yeah. And I think it's important at a time like this to not blow it up, but to let the client save face. Yeah. Taking as much of the blame on yourself as possible. Hey, absolutely. We're going in a new direction. I for whatever reason, I don't have the time that you deserve. And then, take it on yourself and, just bite the bullet and do that.
Yeah.
And then having that plan of like, okay, here's where we go going forward. I'm going to transition you to this, rep who's going to be serving you now. Or, this service that I'm offering, I realize isn't right for you. I would recommend that you check this out and go this direction. Having some next steps so you're not just leaving them high and dry. I think that's an important thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, I think it's also critical for us to talk about how to, avoid getting yourself in this mess to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Because once you have, a couple of these problem clients, you got to begin looking in the mirror and saying, is there something I'm doing that is attracting these clients that aren't the clients I actually want? And
Right.
so, I would recommend a few things in terms of kind of understanding what your process is so that you can get the right clients going forward so that you don't have to do this ever if possible.
Right.
And I think some of that is, taking a look at what your qualification process is and what your onboarding process is. Because both of those, as you're figuring out, is this the right client for me? We often think in terms of, am I the right service for them? But maybe we need to be asking the question, is this the right client for me? And including that in the qualification process and the onboarding process, as once they make the choice with your product or your service, and you're serving them, and all of that allows you to set expectations. Because so often clients become difficult when expectations aren't being met. You're not living up to what their expectations are. They aren't living up to what your expectations are. And so if you can figure out a way, like maybe is there something in my process here, either as I'm, qualifying somebody or as I'm bringing them on board, in which, we're not communicating well about what the expectations are. And so looking at those processes, tremendously important to avoiding these kinds of headaches in the future.
Yeah, all excellent points, Rob.
Yeah.
I think you kind of nailed it with that.
Yeah. You might also think about, your pricing structure. Mm-hmm. It could be the type of thing that, you hear this so often in sales and, across the board. It's the small dollar customers that tend to be the biggest headaches.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true. But I just to kind of a counterpoint to that, I think we talked about it earlier. I mean, if you're up against a quota, right, and you've got numbers that you have to hit, I think there is a tendency as a sales professional to say, I'm going to take this client on, knowing the risk. It's $500, but if I get 4 or 5 of these, I could come a little bit closer to my budget. And so there is there's that balancing act of deciding, do I need this sale? Am I able to provide the service? Or am I at a point, like you said, where I can be a little pickier on, okay, I just don't have the time. And I've seen this on both as a sales manager, some brand new reps. I'm like, listen, you need to take as much of the business as you can. Yep. Whereas with some of my more seasoned reps who are handling some of our bigger accounts, you have to have the conversation. Is it really worth your time to go after that $500 a month client because of what you said? It's going to be a headache because their demands are so high because that 500 means so much to them.
Yep. Yeah. So it's something to take a look at and say, it's something to consider. Maybe your pricing structure is what it should be, and that's great. Maybe you increase it and it helps to weed out some of these folks. I think another thing is really kind of understanding, who the ideal client is for you.
Yeah.
And figuring that out so that then you are targeting those people. And this kind of leads us to our tip for today, something that every salesperson can do today. And that is, you can sit down with your client list and grade it, prioritize it. Say, just think about on a scale of, A, B, C, D, and F. Why do we skip E? Does anybody have any explanation for that? I have no idea why we do that.
We skip E? We skip? We just...
A, B, C, D, F.
F.
Yeah.
Who needs an E?
Yeah, exactly. But, you sit down with that and, if you want to have an E category, go ahead. But sit down with that and say, okay, who are my A clients? Who are the best of the best? Who are the ones that are paying the most, that have the biggest return on investment, that are easy to work with, that I love working with, that just give me any reason to talk to them. Who are those A clients? Who are your B clients? The ones that, are okay. They're paying pretty well. It's all right. Like they're not difficult, but it's okay. Who are those? Who are the ones that are kind of in the middle, like, meh? there's some things that could be better. I wish they were paying more. I wish they were bigger. I wish they were a little bit faster to communicate with me, but it's all right. It's not a hassle. Who are those ones that there's some issues, that there's some room for improvement? That D category of like, hey, if this goes the wrong direction, things are, could get out of hand in a hurry. Who are those ones that like there's issues with payment, there's issues with communication, there's issues with expectations. They haven't risen to the level of crisis yet, but the potential's there. And then who are those ones that are the crisis clients, the difficult ones? Who are the ones that are failing or you're failing them? For all of these things that we've talked about, you could sit down with a spreadsheet, with a piece of paper, with whatever, and in a matter of an hour, have a full set of an understanding of, here's my very best clients. Here are the ones that are good to work with. Here are the ones that are okay. Here are the ones that we've got some challenges, and here are the ones that maybe I need to do some evaluation on. And then you can figure out from there a couple of things. One, what's the roadmap going forward to improve, to help people, level up in terms of their grades? And how can I get more of the A and B clients? Right. Where can I find them? What are the lookalikes? How can I use that understanding that this is an A client? How can I match that to find more A clients? And how can I avoid the F clients, the D and F clients?
Yeah, I think all valid points. I love the idea of grading the clients. Like you said, going and finding more of those A clients. And I think we talked about it way back when in one of our prospecting podcasts, where that was one of the things we recommended. Like, who are those best clients, and how can you go find more of them? Because one, from a quality of business, quality of life, those types of clients really make life a lot better. And then, what do you do with those bottom clients, and how do you, dependent upon your circumstance, avoid bringing the same? If you fire a client and then you bring one on that's exactly the same, you've done nothing. Like, you really just made life double worse for yourself. So.
Exactly. And we are here on this podcast to hopefully make things better for you as a salesperson. Hopefully you are not dealing with too many difficult clients. If you've got any specific questions or any way that we could help you, give us a comment on in the comments section on Facebook. Find our Facebook page. We're the Bowtie Sales Guys, and leave a comment for us here or on YouTube. We would love that, and we'd love to interact with you and help you with that. We would love for you to like the page and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Let folks know that you're listening and that you find this helpful. Mike, it's great to be back. It's great to see you. And hopefully we'll be back again next week with more great sales tips for everybody.
I think we will. We're gonna make it happen, Rob. I'll wrangle you somehow and get you onto the podcast.
All right. Have a great one, everybody.